Tanzi, Meagan Byrne Nisikusun, Apatwako Sisan, Hamilton, Ontario, Nuchin. Hi, my name is Meagan Byrne. I am Apatwako Sisan, federally recognized as Métis of the Métis Nation of Ontario, and I am the lead and founder at Achimostawinan Games. So we won the Digital Interactive Award for our very first commercial game, Hill Agency, PURITYdecay. It's a video game. It's a cyber noir, Indigenous futurist detective video game. I think that's the best way to put it. It's got a lot of stuff going on. And I'm a video game designer. I do mechanics, I do narrative, I did all the writing for this game. And one of the great things about this game is, we worked as a majority Indigenous team. So this project is actually not like the first of its kind, but one of the first commercial games to come out that's an entirely Indigenous team from start to finish. Any place where people who don't get to see themselves in the mainstream media is super vital. Like, we need spaces like this to kind of keep that flame alive, because, we've been dealing with so many years of, like, not just colonialism, but like active colonial suppression. Like, it's only been in like the last couple of decades we've even been allowed to be ourselves in public and not have to sort of like pretend that we're not who we are, that we're not Indigenous. So being able to make pieces is important, but you can't make pieces if you don't feel supported, if you don't feel like there's your audience there who understands you, who sees you. So if you are starting out and you don't know which direction you want to go, just try a little bit of everything. And then once you find the thing you're good at, I know a lot of times in kind of Western schools, they're like, oh, stick to the stuff that's hard for you. It's like, no, find the thing that's easy. Because when you take that path that flows, you actually start finding like momentum builds and builds and builds. And, you're going to work, you're going to have to hustle, but it should feel easy most of the time. And that's when you're on the right path. So Hill Agency was a piece that I did because I wanted to tell original stories. I wanted to see a space that kind of explored what will it look like when we get to have full sovereignty over our spaces? What would it look like when we kind of have land back in a way in the cities? And I wanted to show that. I also wanted to talk about stuff that, I kind of had to deal with a lot in my life. And I wanted to talk about it in a way that I think I call it good medicine, where it's not just the making of it that's good medicine for me, but like the sharing of it is good medicine. Because sometimes, you can make stuff and it's good medicine for you, but it's not good medicine to share. And so that was very deliberate, was to like make sure I was talking about a story in a way that others could relate to it and not be harmed, and rather be like invigorated and healed by it. And, I see that very much in line with like what imagineNATIVE wants to do, is, really invigorate people and give them good medicine. Winning this award it was just like a very nice, like, see, wasn't it worth it? Because this game was really hard to make, and it wasn't just the usual hard to make. Like, I feel like anything you could think that could go wrong went wrong. Lots of things went right, though. But when we finished, it just felt like, did it matter? Like, was what all that pain and everything we went through, did it matter? And it feels a little bit like a, yes, it does matter. It's really important. Keep doing this. I feel like I think a lot of people describe it as like Native Christmas. And I remember hearing that a lot when I first got started. And I feel like if it wasn't for the space that existed way back when I was first starting, like as a young person, making weird games and not really having a place to show it, wasn't, my peers who were working in video games, they didn't get what I was talking about as an Indigenous person. And then I remember bringing it, and this was like my very first piece, Wani Sinawin Lost, and just like a whole room of people being like, oh my God, I've had this exact same experience. And I was like, yes, you get it. And so like that's what it means to me. I'm hoping one day that Indigenous game devs which is a group that I co-run. But Indigenous game devs as just a designation of people like really blow up this industry. I would really love to see more games. I would love to see more teams, getting more support. I want to see easier paths for them. That's really my hope for the future, is that, that I did push enough branches out of the way at the front of the canoe portaging that others can come through that path faster and with more ease and with less resistance. That's really my hope for the future.